The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Kraynak.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it, weekend editions here at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Mark Kraynak, again seeking NIL opportunities, and Mr. Umpire. It's Elijah Herbel. Can find and follow a couple of us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbel Essence. Someday we'll get Mark Kraynak back to social media land. Maybe.
Depends on your NIL contributions.
Sure.
Depends on that. And then you get some shout-outs.
Always ready for you to get shout-outs in the stream. That's how we do a lot of our Saturday mornings in the stream. Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe there. If you think we're annoying, totally get it. But at least check out the page on YouTube for all of your post-game updates, your press conferences, some of your interactions with your favorite Huskers in the interview arena, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Follow us also on Twitter, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed. Tell a buddy at H Varsity Radio. KFOR, Facebook, and Twitter also is where you can watch the show. We'll get our starting five shout-outs going and say, hey, we'll do our roll call. I got into my buddy Iowa Russ, and I started this a couple of different times over the last several years because it's not a new series. But, brother, I have been deep into to Band of Brothers. So I think I'm through episode 4.
So good.
It is so good.
One of my most watched shows of all time. I think I've probably seen Band of Brothers 8 or 9 times at this point, and I will watch it again and again. It never gets old.
Is it just
You're talking the original or the Pacific one?
I haven't seen the Pacific one.
The Pacific is not as good as Band of Brothers. I think the book with the old breed might be better, but the show Band of Brothers, it's so good.
Yeah, it's excellent. It really is excellent. It's
so
terrific.
Yeah, I'm there. So is it just 9 episodes?
I can't remember if it's 9
Probably.
or 10.
Yeah, but halfway home, I will check that out. Some of it out today after Nebraska baseball. We had a pretty unique show yesterday as we were able to do a pregame with our dear friend Jabba Chamberlain and his podcast.
What does he know? What does he know?
Well, he was watching the game with us, calling out what needed to happen right before it happened, as former players tend to do at that level. And or beyond. He's got a couple World Series rings, so that was cool. Elijah popped over, so we all got to watch the ball game for a bit before we launched at 4. The Hawaiian pizza from Lazari's was magnificent. It was just so good. So yeah, tough one for Nebraska, but I don't think Nebraska fans, while you hate to lose and you're not happy to lose to Florida, Nebraska just got beat by a better squad yesterday, and it was a pretty good ball game. Florida just had a little too much giddy up with their bats, a little too much pop, and Nebraska had really just a couple of chances, and they needed to play nearly perfect. They didn't, but they competed hard. We'll see if they bounce back. I, again, was streaming and binging Band of Brothers, so I don't know if Oklahoma State whacked Niagara or not.
They did, in fact, whack Niagara last night.
Okay, so it is Nebraska and Niagara at 1, and we're still fighting the good fight to try and get ESPN Plus on my upstairs TV. Although it was good to go downstairs and watch in the downstairs kind of man cave area that's usually juniors. I don't get to go down there that often anymore. So good Friday for me. Kraynak, I know you were in Des Moines, brother. How was baseball last weekend? Good to have you in the chair again.
It's good to be back, man. Baseball was okay. It was okay. We're not a good Saturday team. We did okay on Sunday. Now, but I do gotta talk about something that was mentioned off air. Okay, so 80 ounces of water is what you consume. That's good, right? Let's do some quick math here.
That's what I do in the morning.
Well, that's where I was getting at. That's what I was getting
water
at. So
intake.
80 ounces of water a day is really good, right? That's probably the equivalent of about 7. Imagine 7 Dr. Peppers, right? 7 cans. That's what we're talking about, ounces wise. Like 7 of those a day. But you do that before 8:30?
Why'd you wait?
How are you not just a fire hose the entire day?
Oh, I don't for the KFOR morning show, right before the top of the hour, it was about a 2 to 3 minute break before ABC News, and I am sprinting to the can for sure. My water intake was 135 ounces yesterday, 169 on Thursday, 159 on Tuesday.
Jeez.
121 on Monday, 169 last Sunday, 133, 129, 159, 121. So, yeah. Dude, it makes you feel incredible. I know you got to piss all the time, but from an energy standpoint and just a filtration, it's gold. It's wonderful.
Can I ask a question?
It's a game changer. Yeah.
Oh, is no one going to question Mark translating the water into Dr. Pepper ounces? Are you just going to let that one slide?
Thought he reached for something that's familiar. Him and Forrest Gump. 15 Dr. Peppers, Jen, eh?
I don't even drink that. That probably got in my head through that, right?
I drank 15 Dr. Peppers, Jenny.
Band of Brothers has a Tom Hanks connection.
Yeah.
It's probably
Forrest Gump. Yes.
That's probably what it was. That's what it got into my subconscious. But seriously, it's like 130 to 150 ounces of water a day is what you're putting down. And the thought, and it's what? Suppresses appetite, obviously hydrates you. What else? What are we doing?
It's just energy, man. It's just good energy. Because I can go now, I'm on a second day in a row of coffee, which I do 1 cup. Before I was a nightmare, but I can go probably 2 to 3 times a week having a cup of coffee versus just having the water is a pretty natural energy.
Wow, man, you could.
Rick says I can dial that thing back to just 8 ounces of water a day.
You could supply South Stadium with piss bombs for the Colorado game. I mean. It's just
order up
alone. I know. Just alone, you could do that. That is incredible. It's inspiring. How long did it take you to adjust to that much of a water intake? And how much? Isn't there something where if you drink too much water, like you can die?
Yes.
I swear I read
that is my wife keeps bringing me water once I hit that 169 ounce threshold. She's bringing more water. So
is that what it is?
Yeah, she's a nurse
170
too.
ounces, like the
I don't know.
off, like
I don't know what it is.
Cutoff point.
I would think 3 gallons probably could put you on the old mat.
How long did it take you to adjust to that much water intake, where you weren't walking around just sloshing, sounding like a waterbed?
Well, no, it's been gradual. I kind of started this thing right after the Purdue week. Yeah. Everything starts and stops with football. So October 23rd. Okay. And just shout out to our friends at Lincoln Weight Loss. Love those guys. That's the program I've been on. And I've been on maintenance for them for probably 3.5 months.
Okay.
So, where I'm doing a similar food choice with the water and can mix in a cheat day or two, and I don't turn into the piggy I used to be. So I'm okay.
Okay. This is very important information. Mm-hmm. This is good. This whole crew. I mean, I'm on the journey too. Look out! I'm starting today.
On the water journey.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna start. I don't want to just go all in and just be waterlogged all day. I think I'll go.
Elijah Elijah was an eyewitness to me destroying 3, 4, 5 pieces of Lazari's Hawaiian pizza yesterday, and it was glorious.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for that, because I've also been on a diet recently, and
you needed the day, didn't you?
The only thing I ate yesterday was pizza, because you sent me home with 7 slices of pizza. The only thing I ate yesterday was pizza, and I don't feel great today because of that. So,
well, I ate at least we ate during the Nebraska game, so didn't eat crushed pizza last night, so I feel pretty good. Watching Band of Brothers, of course, so it's all good. Fellas, let's talk a little Nebraska baseball. We'll hit some Husker football topics as well. Brandon Vogel with us here in a couple of minutes. And then the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, will join us. Coach Brandon is in first as we give our shout-outs this morning. Justin is here. Walter from Philly. He is betting 0 chances of them being on time today. We were all ready to go through the group text at 7:30.
We were just drinking water.
Two of us, all three of us had to apparently make a run to Scooters this morning.
No free shout-outs.
Well, clearly, all three of us are late because we went and got a coffee. That's shout-out worthy. Justin is in. David, good to have David in. Rick's already chimed in. Crazy Spider Adventures. Is that a corn cob hat? Or check that. Is that a corn cob in your pants, or are you just happy to see me? No comment. The other Dave is in. Part of the Boulder Peace Treaty is Jeff Snitley. He says, good morning. Brennan from the Black Hills. Brennan, good to see you, bud. Good to hear from you. And Brandon has the comment so far of the morning. Nebraska better go to Shields and get some new bats as we keep this free shout-out Saturday going. Yeah. We have Brian.
They have a closeout bucket, usually the used bucket for when people hit in the cages.
Yeah.
Nebraska could get some good deals probably.
Of course, Junior during his baseball career would never look at the closeout options. No. Moonbot is in. Good to have Justin. Manhattan Husker. Good to have you. NASCAR Eric is in. Good to have you, NASCAR Eric. Eat Beef is here. And we also have a Mark Kraynak sighting. Drunk Monk, what's up? Scott is in. And Michael, good to have you from North Carolina. Scott is here as well. We'll get more of your shout-outs. Scott says, yes, you got to flush them kidneys with the water intake. Nebraska needs to flush.
Do we need medical advice disclaimers on this show somehow? Like,
I don't think so.
Is that where we're going now?
I don't know. But the smartest guy in the room now, and I know you're both pretty smart, Elijah and Kraynak, is Brandon Vogel.
You made me feel pretty dumb with that spelling bee yesterday. Thank you very much.
Okay. Counterread.com is
a little passive-aggressive way of calling us dumb.
No. You're both brilliant people. So is Brandon Vogel.
He doubled down. He doubled down. Did you hear that? No, you're both brilliant people.
Hey, Brandon. Yeah, you're smarter than us. Just so you know, that's how we're starting the morning.
Vogues, how we doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm hoping these guys can keep up, but we'll see.
So
we can't.
Help me with. We had the second ever Hail Varsity spelling bee yesterday.
Well, tell me about this. I missed it. This is great. I used to love spelling bees.
7 years ago, I thought you won, didn't you, Vogues? You won because you're like the heavyweight champ who won, and then you retired. Because I tried to get you to do the spelling bee before, and you haven't, which is fine. But I thought you crushed Clausburn 7 years ago, right? You won, didn't you?
No, I don't think so. I think.
Oh,
I
no!
Think you won. I think Joe Blaha tripped me up, and that was the end of it.
Versus clipped you up. Okay.
You know what tripped me up yesterday, Brandon and Mark? Mike Krzyzewski. What kind of spelling bee question is that?
Isn't it KRZYS?
ZYZWESKI?
Damn it!
Krzyzewski.
Yeah. Not that hard.
Well, clearly Elijah's the third smartest guy in the stream this morning.
You need to drink more water, bro. You need to drink more water. Like, Brandon, are you familiar with that? Did you know Chris pounds 80 ounces of water?
My goal is 135 ounces a day.
But hear me out. Before 8:30 in the morning.
So 10 cups of water before 8:30 now.
Yeah.
Like,
I've got my bottled water, dudes. I mean, I've got.
That's getting it done. Like,
It's really vodka, but I mean,
Not only does he
no.
drink that much water, it's all out of plastic bottles, so he's killing the environment too.
Perfect. What do you think your average is per day?
that
Brandon?
about came out my nose. Thank you for
I think
that.
I think we're all more aware, as responsible adults, that water intake is important. But I mean, if you really average it out, where are you at?
I'm probably about 80 for the day. That's if we don't include coffee, which is mostly water, because that becomes the problem. Like, if there's coffee available, I'll just drink it.
Yeah. Yep. See, it causes sneezing. You notice that? Chris can't even sneeze because it's like his body.
Elijah's little jab there made me laugh, and it went up my nose, and now I'm seeing tracers. It's okay.
He's got a point, though. You want me to order you an Nalgene, Chris? It's like $10 on Amazon.
A what now?
A Nalgene, a Stanley Cup, anything really.
Okay.
The tracers is because those weren't morel mushrooms, bro. That was the wrong. You reach into the wrong stash.
My week-long Bill Walton tribute continues. Yeah. So
long string.
Folks, let's get into some baseball. Just for the record, gonorrhea tripped up Clausburn. That is the word he had trouble spelling yesterday.
I love that was mentioned on this show. That's the first. That is the first.
That's good.
First STD mentioned by name on this show. That's great.
Not the first, not the last.
Well, what'd you think of the performance yesterday, Vogues, by Nebraska baseball? Good ball game. I mean, Nebraska was fighting.
Yeah, they did. I thought it was more of a strong performance by Florida than a rough outing for Nebraska. We talked about it earlier in the week. Florida, the record may have been a little deceptive. Was pretty good in the SEC in a tough league, and even against the top teams in the SEC specifically. Really aggressive at the plate. Nebraska threw its ace, and Florida got the best of the matchup early, which I think kind of changed things. I mean, it's so much of sports, but particularly elimination sports or tournament, is like, if you can be in control, it becomes an even bigger edge than it is in, say, the regular season. And that was Florida. So you just kind of got to tip your cap to the Gators, I think, because they, at the plate specifically, they played really, really well.
The thing that I keep coming back to today is the fact that if you'd have told me yesterday before the game that Nebraska would have held that Florida lineup to 5 runs, I would have said, well, there's a pretty good chance Nebraska can win this ball game. And that's something that I don't think a lot of Husker fans out there who understand this Florida team kind of realize today is, like, it's in the Stillwater Regional, which is going to be very offensive because of that ballpark. Holding Florida to 5 runs, similarly holding Oklahoma State to 5 runs, if you can do that, if you can come out of the loser's bracket, no matter what you do, holding any of these teams just 5 runs is a win. But Nebraska's bats putting up 2 runs is the real disappointment from the day yesterday, and it's what led them to lose, because at that ballpark, putting up 2 runs is it should be a crime.
Yeah, you're much more used to slow pitch softball scores down in Stillwater. That's why. Does Oklahoma State still have a bat on the front of their uniforms? I didn't watch them last night, but always enjoyed that.
Should.
Anyway.
They put up 17 runs last night, so if they didn't, they should.
There you go. No, I think that's a great point, Elijah. Florida, 14 hits on its own was kind of the headline for me. But when you look at keeping them below 5 or at 5 is that better than expectation in that ballpark? It might have been.
Yeah. So Nebraska has Niagara today at 1 because they got smoked by Oklahoma State yesterday. What was it, 19-5 or 17-5?
I just looked it up. I said 17. It was 19-7 at final score.
19-7. Okay. And Oklahoma State put up like 11 runs in first 3 innings or something like that. So very offensive game. But any concern with what I was kind of surprised by, and I didn't get to watch every pitch yesterday. I was kind of in and out working, watching it as much as I could. But I didn't see Nebraska do much in the way of small ball, stealing, manufacturing. Maybe I missed it. Did I miss some attempts at that? Did you all see that too? And
a couple times they sent him down to
squads like this.
They sent him down to second a couple of times, and one time was a clear throw down to second that was out. The second time I thought could have been challenged, but you weren't on base a whole hell of a lot, were they, Vogues, to get much of a running game?
Yeah, they weren't, and I think some of that too might be kind of back to Elijah's point. Like here, you kind of hope you can score in bunches a little bit, and when you fall behind, it might change that a little bit even more. But it's kind of one of those tough borderline calls of like, hey, can we get back in this one run at a time? And if you don't, then when do you make the change of like, oh, we got to play for something bigger?
Mm-hmm. I keep on coming back to that moment really fast, Mark. I keep on coming back to that moment where you have the bases loaded with one out in the eighth and you're not able to scratch across any runs.
Yep.
That is a moment that I think the Huskers will be kicking themselves over, because I think you're one solid base hit there from chasing that pitcher from the game.
Well, and Tyler Stone
taking the lead.
And Stone's just crushed that ball to center field. It just, he got a good swing on it, and he's due. But it's so funny to ask somebody, like, you can't count Nebraska out because of what they just went through in the Big Ten tournament, right? Like, they went through this exact same scenario where they just kind of stitched it together and got scrappy. And that really is that. It's what's interesting about that too is that's sort of Will Bolt. Like, that's how he played. That's what he was like. The whole backs against the wall thing really works for him. and his, it does, like, and the count us out kind of guy, because he was like the smallest, probably middle infielder in all of the Big 12 at the time. At this point, though, after seeing Florida up close, after watching Nebraska against Big Ten competition for most of the year, do you think Nebraska can conceivably power through something like this when you have juggernauts like Oklahoma State, like Florida? To me, the talent difference seems pretty stark.
Yeah, it is. I think, well, to your point, like, you can't say no based on what we just saw in the Big Ten tournament. That said, an SEC team is different. Oklahoma State on its home field is different. But based on yesterday, I think Nebraska should get through today. I would like to see him go against Florida again. I'd like to see him, take that chance and see there. I think expecting them to get out of this regional with Oklahoma State there is probably too big of an ask, but let's give it a shot. At this point, you're right. It is very much kind of a team, I think, taking on the persona of its coach a little bit, the backs against the wall piece of it. And, well, you don't have any choice now. Your back literally is against the wall. So let's see what happens. Eventually you gotta move beyond that to, I think, reach greater heights. But that's for the seasons to come.
Brendan Vogel with us this morning from counterread.com. Him and Aaron Sorensen do an amazing job of insight and opinion with Nebraska Athletics. Pretty awesome. Bi-weekly newsletter they do, and more at times during the week. And Husker Baseball. Vogues, I'm interested to see, and maybe I've fast forwarded too soon, but I'm ready to put in ink Nebraska, and I'm jumping to conclusions, I know, but their pitching depth, the way it's rounded into form, specifically how it performed in the Big Ten tournament, that's Walsh. I know he wasn't perfect, but I thought Christo, his last three outings, has been good. I know he got touched up a little bit, but he also made some really big pitches yesterday too. 5-2 could have been a lot worse from Florida, is my point. And Nebraska tried to hold the Wolves at bay as much as possible. You have Brockett still, you have Walsh still. Christo came in for an extended relief, so I don't know that they can go to him as a starter. So I think Nebraska will have a fighting chance on the hill, moving forward, because I don't know what Oklahoma State or Florida's number 3, 4, 5 guy are going to look like, right? Florida's kid last night, Jacobson, was a similar story to Nebraska's staff, where he's really rounded into form, and his last 7 to 8 starts have been nails. He's a different guy. I think Nebraska's staff is a different staff than what they've been. It's really going to be about this offense. It's who's going to help out Swanson, who's going to help out. There's about 3 guys in the lineup right now that are hitting, and nobody else. So it's going to come down to that Big Red offense, and can they do a little better against maybe not the non-aces that they're set to see?
Yeah, you would hope so. And like I said, I think, you don't want to take the Niagara game for granted, but get through that one and then take your chances. A week ago at this point, when Nebraska needed to win 2 games in the same day in Big Ten tournament, we were talking about, like, we didn't know who was going to be the starter in that first game. And it was like, well, you either get like a great performance out of somebody who's down your list a little bit, or you don't. And if you don't, you're in trouble. And Nebraska did in both games that Saturday. So you feel good about that piece of it. A lot of the Big Ten tournament, I think, still kind of carries over for me here. So get a win today, and then see who you face on Sunday. And I wouldn't feel bad about it being either opponent in that next game for Nebraska if they're able to get them.
And Coach Brandon kind of nails it here in the stream. The 3 games that you'd face against Oklahoma State and Florida, assuming you beat Niagara, he says you're going to need to score 50 runs in those 3 games, which in any other case might be an exaggeration, but that'd be 17 runs a game. That sounds about right, actually.
It could be.
Will Nebraska score more runs these next 3 wins they need versus Nebraska football's scoring average a season ago in Big Ten play?
Let me just pull up how many points Nebraska football scored in November of last year.
13. I
didn't know we're going masochism on a Saturday morning.
54 points in 4 November games. Anyway.
I just looked at the box score that of that game yesterday, which is you almost never see. 1 through 9 in Florida all got hits. Yep. Yeah, every single one of them got hits, and they only score 5 runs. Leaving 12 guys on, like it could have been a lot worse. But man, having that consistent pressure throughout a lineup, that's a tough day at the yard. That is not easy. Where's Cole Evans been? Cole Evans didn't play yesterday. Was that a matchup thing? Is he hurt?
Well, I mean, Swanson's been absolutely on fire out in left field. So, I mean, that's the issue.
So that was just the swap right there, just the wonderful.
They've been going with Swanson and left over Evans.
The crazy stat from yesterday is that Swanson has raised his batting average from the start of the Big Ten tournament until now by over 90 points. That's a ridiculous statistic. His batting average is 90 points since the start of the Big Ten tournament.
He's been outstanding, but I just remember from the year, it feels like Evans was pretty clutch.
Sure.
I don't think he put up great numbers, but clutch wise, he was there. And how about this too? How about at this point of the year, Dylan Carey, worst batting average among the regular players, and I can't see that lasting. He really climbed out. He was Mendoza line for a bit. 10, 210, 220. He did raise his average over time. But God, if you could get him going, that would be certainly helpful too. And then Tyler Stone.
He had the opportunity.
Break.
I mean, that was a guy at bat with bases juiced and 1 out. He needed that hit.
And Stone was the guy
the pitcher came with 3 straight heaters on him too, which was.
Yeah. And Stone's the guy that yesterday, I think, despite the fact that it didn't lead to the results, was taking much better hacks up there than he was through most of the Big Ten tournament. He was the guy in the Big Ten tournament that looked out of sorts at the plate. I didn't feel that same way yesterday. He just didn't get the results. His swing looked a lot better. So you just got to get some results against Niagara today. Was it 1 o'clock? 1 o'clock's the game?
1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
Yep.
Folks, let's talk some football and let's talk some prime time. And Nebraska Showcase, I know we touched on it with you Thursday a little bit, but Iowa City, 6:30, Black Friday. How does that grab you, man?
By the way, so we're okay in the Big Ten playing night games in November now? Like, I know that was like still just kind of like, I don't know.
I think it was
really
the concession. Dumb. All right, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, if you refuse Friday nights, we're going to then do some Friday night football on Black Friday. I think that's maybe a counter. That's just my view of it when it comes to the bargaining. But I love this. Not going to be easy, and it could be not a lot of fun. It could be really cold. But when it comes to football and avoiding the juggernaut that is the NFL and the Chiefs, kind of had to do it. Either 11 o'clock or 6:30. And, hey, we're going to be out in Iowa City for that thing, so I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be strange. I mean, has it ever been fun playing Iowa? Which is a credit to the Hawkeyes, no matter what. But it'll be strange. Well, it'll be strange on Black Friday for Husker fans having to wait that long for the game. Maybe though it's a good thing. Gives you your day back for the most part. But it'll just be strange to see a game that late in the Big Ten schedule at night in Iowa City. So. Should be. I mean, we'll see what the weather's like. It's going to be cold. We can pencil that in for sure. But I think it'll be a great atmosphere, and it'll be a good opportunity for Nebraska if it has done well with its previous primetime opportunities. We'll see what their record is by the time they get to that game. But a great chance to kind of have the spotlight on a Friday night. So I like it. I don't have to play in it, so that makes a big difference. But for me, potentially sitting at home, I'm in on this.
Yeah, you keep looking at that schedule too. UTEP national. That's Fox national television. 2:30 kick. That is gonna. Oof. Why does that have 98 degrees at kickoff, 115 on the turf written all over it? That could be a blue hair dropping game for sure. well, unless they go 80 to 150 ounces of water that day, like Chris is trying to recommend. You're just preparing for that game.
No, this is why they moved the sideline, Mark.
This makes sense. Yep. So you got that one national TV. You got Colorado, that's going to be a night game national TV. You got Illinois national TV on a Friday night. Like, Nebraska getting back into just kind of that network, and a little bit of a product of the Big Ten, not a little bit, a lot of bit of the product of the new Big Ten TV deals. But Brandon, is it me or are sort of the less biased network executives kind of drinking the Roule-Aid too?
I think maybe a little bit. It's tough. I haven't looked at the full week lineup to see like what Nebraska's potentially getting selected over. But it does seem to indicate that for all of its woes from basically post 2014, minus 2016, however you felt about that 9-4 on paper. Nebraska's kind of still a draw. And I think we knew that. I mean, just don't look at Memorial Stadium every Saturday. You know what that's going to look like. Still look at the Nebraska's road games. I mean, the fan support, it's just a given that it's there. So, and I do think, because of, this has been the case for myself in previous years for, say, a Texas and Steve Sarkisian's first, or even early in his second season. It's like, Longhorns have been down for a little bit. Let's see what they're up to. So I think you get a little bit of that with Nebraska, particularly early in year two. So it might be a little bit of a reflection of that.
What's cool too is, it's a nice 1-2 punch. You got brand eyeballs despite losing seasons that have been there, right? Yep. Is Nebraska going to be finally back to what I remember them as, right? Think of that thought bubble from your national college football fan that likes Nebraska, has respected Nebraska, but is not necessarily a Nebraska fan. You've got Rule. They really played their butt off last year, and it was unfortunate with the turnovers and just what they had to do injury-wise. And now you pencil in a freshman phenom that, let's be honest, the guy gives you some hope because of his talent. The guy gives you some hope with his skill set and work ethic. And then you also have a little bit of a Mahomes factor. I mean, he has those mannerisms, right? I mean, he has that flair, at least minimally from what we've seen, but we've seen a whole hell of a lot of Patrick Mahomes. If I'm a TV executive, I'm doing my math on, all right, Nebraska, I've got a coach that folks like, and he's a soundbite, and more importantly, he's a follow-through with that message. And then we may potentially have a freshman phenom at quarterback. I'm throwing that on TV all the time.
Yeah, and we want to put the cart way before the horse here.
It's totally before.
Oh, no. I'm about to put it further ahead. Like, UTEP, like that's a team that wants to go fast. And I think it's a team that's in more of a year zero situation than a year one in terms of the build. Like it's going to be pretty extensive. So something they can do, like, right away in their first game under a new head coach and new staff is, they can up the pace offensively. Can they move it consistently against, my point is like that is not a defense first team. So if that is Dylan Raiola's first game as a starter, we might have to, I'm saying it now, we might have to like rein ourselves in collectively. Everybody, Nebraska fans, national football fan or national college football fans who tune into that game, because like the conditions are there for, if he plays well, it could look really good.
Well, and what's the early spreads on that game are
28 and a half. 28 and a half.
Yeah. So I think, Brandon, what you're saying, since they go fast,
NASCAR Eric.
since they go fast. Oh yeah, let's bring it right now. It's June 1st, y'all. Let's bring the Kool-Aid. But so they're going to go fast, which means Nebraska gets more possessions. Nebraska is going to be substantially bigger along the offensive line. They're going to be able to establish the run game, which sets up the play action. And Dylan Raiola has literally never missed a play action pass in his entire throwing career, going back to junior high and in the backyard. That's true, Elijah. Seriously, he's never missed one of those. Okay. Nebraska has a track team at wide receiver. It's going to be 90,000 degrees, which I guess UTEP would be used to that. So score prediction, I guess, is where I'm getting at. And, I think maybe the 3-3-5 breaks a little bit. That team's going to go fast. They're going to have a couple trick plays. They might get loose for, give them 10 points. Nebraska 70, UTEP 10. Is that kind of where we're
the lock of the college football season per Mark Kraynak is the 2024 opener and laying that 28 and a half, folks. Do you concur?
If I had to pick today, I'd probably lay those points, but I do so reluctantly, despite everything I've already said. We just talked about them scoring 54 points in November. Granted, that's like the heart of Big Ten play where, 30% of your roster's injured for everybody.
The wind sucks all month.
Yep. So I'm not quite ready for like a vintage, 1994, 95 opener. But yeah, I would take Nebraska in the points at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Brendan, before we get you out of here, as we look at Nebraska's national television schedule early in the season, I asked the same question to Bill Dolman yesterday. I want to get your thoughts on it as well, and then I have to go pee. Surprisingly, I'm not the guy who drank 80 ounces of water this morning, but alas.
Not there yet.
Do you think that national media relevancy has a tangible effect on the field of play? Should Nebraska go kick the hell out of UTEP, as we've suggested? Should Nebraska go beat Colorado? Does the eyes of the college football world being on Nebraska, do you think it has a tangible effect in on-field results? Because it's been a while since the eyes of college football have truly been on Nebraska.
I think you hope not if you're Matt Rule. Like, you're just trying to, I mean, has it had a tangible effect in the past, like for a team that's lost as many one-score games? And, I know we're not talking about national TV games and all of those, or even most of those, but this is a team that this was a program, to go back over 4, 5, 6, however many years, like, has really struggled with, like, people think they're here. They should be here, even if that's like, 6-6, 7-5 coming into the season projected, and they just couldn't ever get there. So, like, dealing with success would be a welcome, but also a challenge in its own way. And I think it would be something you'd have to actually watch out for more than be happy about if you're the coaching staff of, like, okay, we're, let's say we get to 5-0 or 6-0 or something like that. This is entirely different than what Rule and coaches have said they were trying to kind of overcome and didn't quite get there in 2023, of this team just of being like, it's okay. We just fell behind in the fourth quarter. That the game's still going on. I guess just play would be the short way that I think Matt Rule has put it before. You're trying to get there too, even if things start out on a high note.
Yeah. Brandon, real quick, in your newsletter for Counter Read, really loved your take on Athlon's anonymous coaches, and their quotes. That's one of their traditions each year. They anonymize responses from coaches, basically talking smack or not about the other teams. And man, I thought it was beautiful how you pulled together the last 5 years, and it actually made me think, you know what? I think we actually got to listen to these coaches a little bit more than maybe we want to, because sometimes when you read those in the year, you think it's sour grapes, you think it's just competition or whatever,
or it's accurate.
But right, but you're taking me going back to, I think it was 2019. Going back to 2019, looking at some of those anonymous quotes, like it, it was like painfully accurate, wasn't it?
It really was. It kind of gave you the whole arc. So 2019 is when Athlon started doing that. And that one, much like this offseason, most of the coaches in there were bullish on Nebraska. Scott Frost entering year 2, they're going to be a problem, et cetera, et cetera. Then I think, if I'm remembering this correctly, you get basically 2 years, at least from the quotes that I chose. There's about 5 in each issue. You get this is kind of the all-bus team. Like, they looked the part. They've always looked the part. They've got long, lean athletes, and then they just, it still sticks in a lot of people's minds. Like, one coach was like, yeah, you just wait a quarter. And at that point, they're hurting themselves. And you feel like you'll be fine. And then as you get towards the end of Scott Frost, like, you're starting to hear opposing coaches talk about culture problems or culture issues. And it's like, oh, geez. And then back to 2023, it's like, Matt Rule's a good football coach. We'll see what happens. So now we've come all the way. We're full circle from 2019, year 2 under Matt Rule. Most of it pretty positive about the Huskers.
Yeah. Yep.
Brandon Vogel with us.
I guess it was in 2019 too, but yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean, it stands out to me too. It's kind of a double-edged sword of, like, yeah, I think when you look back at it, you can say, oh, there's some pretty good accuracy here. Like, I read all of these for every team in the country because I'm kind of a freak like that. But it also kind of strikes you of, like, oh, these coaches, like, really prepare for these teams like 1 week a year. And that might be like a bulk of their impressions about them. And then the rest of the time, like, they're recruiting against them. They're like, oh yeah, I hate those guys. Like, because you got to compete against them. So it's an interesting balance.
Yep.
Vogues, what's on the horizon here, bud, with Counter Read, counterread.com. Tell our friends in the stream and on Twitter what's going on with Counter Read with you and Aaron.
Yep. So as you mentioned a little bit earlier, twice weekly newsletter from Aaron Sorensen and myself. That's two subscriber exclusive newsletters. We usually do another piece or two a week, just to kind of get the name out there that you can read if you're a free subscriber. You can sign up for free at first and get a 7-day trial that'll get you a look at what we've been up to this point. A lot of June is going to be some football look ahead stuff, of course, keeping tabs on baseball for as long as their season goes, but big recruiting month, I would say, coming up for Nebraska. And that's true based on what we know is on the Huskers schedule for this year. But some of the stuff I'm working on is June's always kind of been a big recruiting month for Nebraska in terms of not just the level of player Nebraska has gotten there, but the players they keep in the class, not a lot of flips, not a lot of transfers, sign about now, June, early July. So it's this is when the bulk of your class is going to come together, or at least has historically.
Love it. Can't wait to read more about the trail and camps. And guys, we're going to fly through, and it's going to be July soon. We just hit June today, and it's going to be August 1, and let the hype reign, right? Should be fun. Vogues, we appreciate you much, man. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, there he is. Brandon Vogel with Counter Read. The Iron Horse is back in. He's been in the green room waiting patiently, and Gary Sharp with the message and a virtual hug for all Nebraska fans.
Yes.
We still won the Fiesta Bowl.
Hey, why do you guys look so much taller than me?
Well, I think it's because you got to tilt your camera down a little bit there, bud.
I'm not wearing anything.
Yeah, but if you're not wearing pants, don't tilt it down too far. Don't need a Saturday morning puppet show.
No, I already had that.
You did get the black shirt memo, though. That's good.
I did. I'm wearing a hat today. So this is it's a Nebraska Prospects hat.
Oh, with the corn, right? Does the other one have the corn? Right?
Yes, the other one has the corn. They have some great hats. They wear some cool uniforms as well. And they produce some pretty good baseball players.
I told Junior that. It's like, if you were good enough, you'd have a prospect hat.
Oh,
son.
Jesus. That's it.
And you're going full flat. You're going full flat bill today too.
That's a good look.
Here's the thing. I don't think there's any age which it's a cutoff of when you can be flat bill or not flat bill. If you choose to wear the flat bill, you just have to deal with the consequences, and I'm okay with it.
What are the consequences?
Well, people are like, you're too old. Okay, what do you like, 20? Yeah. I'm like, you know what? Yeah. Sometimes you have a midlife crisis, and you go all the way back to when you were living at 26th and W.
It's been normalized. It has.
Yes.
When it was first happening, because everybody was House of Pain like this for, a while. I think when we were growing up, right? Yeah. But then the flat bills came out, right? And you're just like, what are these clowns doing? Like, what? These guys look like idiots. Like,
Mark
what are
just destroying
just gradually
right now.
Yeah, and then just gradually. No, I know how to. No, man.
He's got 47 Husker hats. We're cool.
Hey, by the way, that Herbie hat, not that style, Mark, but Alec Boehm, who has turned into one of the top hitters in the National League, when he was walking into the ballpark the other day, was wearing a Herbie Husker hat. He's a guy that didn't even go to Nebraska. He went to Ron Poly, then went to Wichita State.
I strike his ass out all the time on Road to the Show, on MLB The Show on the PlayStation. Just FYI. And the whole key to him is that he's got a long arm. You just jam him, and it's nothing. It helps when you're pitching Strider.
That's what Sears said to Caglione yesterday.
Mark, do you pitch with Matt Waldron really fast? Because that knuckleball is nasty in that game. It's unhittable.
I'm not tried that. I need to see that.
The Matt Waldron knuckleball. Throw it against anybody online, absolutely unhittable.
Hey, and then throw Jake Myers in center field, and he'll catch everything.
It's a win.
Perfect.
We make an all Nebraska team in MLB The Show. Would it win? That's the question. Because you have some options now.
You do. I mean, the Braves have 2 pitchers alone now, Schwellenbach and Bummer. I couldn't believe that. I was just like, are those the first Huskers ever to play for the Braves? That was awesome. And Schwellenbach had a pretty good debut. They moved him to a starting pitcher. He gave up the 3-run bomb, but hello, you're pitching in the major leagues against major league hitters. It can happen. But interesting what they've done with him to make him a starter, first of all.
Yeah, he went to the right organization. An organization that has a history of developing starting pitching, and they knew what they were looking for. And, Cade Povich is right around the corner. He's going to be up in Baltimore before long.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sharpie, what
good to put together a all Nebraska team, and just real quick, I know, sorry, Chris has been trying to jump in, but I think we should do just like maybe not a spelling bee, not the full on spelling bee, but I missed that. I didn't get to participate. I don't think Gary got to participate. I think y'all should lob a couple of those intermittently at Gary and I who were not there. Just intermittently, just lob a couple at us and see how we do. Some of the spelling bee names and words that you guys had.
Mark, spell Schwellenbach.
Oh,
that's easy.
SCHWELLENBACH. What's up?
Good,
bro?
We'll get a word for both of you shortly, but I want to hear Sharpie's take on baseball.
One quick thing here.
Spell loss, LOSS.
Wow. Hey, you need two of them. You need double L's. So just hold on there, my friend. I did not win in my spelling bee pool this year. You select. You get a state. You get boy or girl, glasses or no glasses. How many vowels in the final word? Country of origin for the parents.
No, that's research.
Hey, it's serious business, man.
Dude, where do you do that? Is that on like DraftKings or something?
So in my previous life, some guys I used to hang out with, they thought, let's do this because one of their younger brothers was like one of the finalists to make it to DC. And so he's like, man, he was telling the story of how intense it is. And like you go into the room and it's a tension convention. He's like, this is great. He goes, we should do something like this. And it birthed. And it's like, this is now like the 13th or 14th year we've done a spelling pool.
That is perfect.
We should, though. Like, I don't know why those national spelling bees are just for the kids. I think we should have some like professional spelling bee people and see what happens. I think it could be a lot of fun. As Mark said, get the sports betting going with adult spelling bees.
Schmidt will remember this, and I'm not sure because I don't live in Lincoln anymore. They used to have an adult spelling bee at P.O. Pears.
They do that.
Yeah, like John Baylor was a ringer.
No, Baylor's the Babe Ruth of spelling. No, we love John, JB. And then Baylor would host the Lincoln spelling bee because there would be one for the kids locally.
That's
P.O. Pears, the originator of the Jiffy Burger, which lives on.
I can't wait. I couldn't wait to have the Jiffy Burger. It was so good.
It's Stella's does it up in B-Town.
All right.
Stella's does it. It's not called the Jiffy Burger, but it's a topping. It's a topping.
There are folks around here that on their menu would still do the tribute to the Pears Burger.
Hey man, I had so much success at the Lips at P.O. Pears. And then Groove Pup would be playing in the back. Oh, that's where you went to get your burger. They had the Lips.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you'd have Cricket and Bob.
Okay.
Yeah, man. When Groove Puppet started playing in the back of P.O. Pears, Sharpie started to go all scoreboard.
Groove Puppet. Was that like Lincoln's equivalent of Lemon Fresh Day in Omaha?
Yes. I treated the back room at P.O. Pears like Nebraska treated Pacific.
49-7 in 1995, I believe. Yeah.
As he's trying to decode a thrashing.
I have asked,
90s weren't much good to the football program.
I have asked AI.
Gary also won 3 national championships.
I have asked AI for some spelling bee words here, so if we do want to get to any spelling later in the show, I have some good suggestions here.
Just throw them in. Just throw them in. Like
I am not participating because, again, I'm the least intelligent guy on this panel.
Oh, but Gary, did you hear about Chris's water intake? I don't know how much you've been listening this morning.
I did.
How does that compare to your daily total? This dude's dropping 80 ounces before 8:30 a.m.
Well, you know what they tell you? You're supposed to drink 64 ounces a day. And you're like, oh, that sounds great. I'll get it done. And you start out with 32 at the beginning of the morning, and then you're like, I'm full.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Yeah. That'll be a straight line to the bathroom for yours truly.
Yeah.
Let's get your reaction on Florida.
South Stadium with piss bombs.
Schmidt is tired of us at this point.
Nebraska. No, we're good. This is fine.
Preparing yourself for the Colorado game.
We are payback from
the press box.
Yes.
No. Here, one quick thing, one quick story. So you remember the game that they threw the snowball, the Byron Bennett game?
91.
That ended 19-19. Chad Brown is running down the field. There were cheerleaders. You know, at the Del Ward facility in Colorado, it was behind that one small set of bleachers in the one end zone where Ralphie came out of where the locker rooms were. There was like a balcony, and most of the Nebraska fans were sitting in those bleacher sections, and there were cheerleaders that were throwing either frozen beer or piss bombs off the balcony. Wow.
Yeah. Hey, how about
cheerleaders were doing it?
Yeah.
How about anonymous? By the way, in the stream, apparently it's wear a baseball cap indoors day. Yeah, that's every day. That's every single day. That's every day. You know?
Sharpie, you felt
that's good.
Not
good
so
point,
great
man.
about the Nebraska-Florida matchup. What'd you think of Nebraska yesterday?
It felt like for the first half of the game, Nebraska was trying to hold on. And then the second half of the game, Florida was trying to hold on. I think it was a game where you saw what SEC baseball is, where Nebraska is good 1 through 6. The SEC usually is good 1 through 9, and then anybody they bring out of the bullpen or is a starter is throwing 95 plus. So I thought it was an adjustment early for Nebraska. And I'll give credit to Sears. He didn't have his best stuff for the second straight game, but he gave Nebraska a chance. He hung in there, and he got some breaks. But it was just, Nebraska was holding on. And then once you got into the bullpen, you thought, okay, Nebraska has a chance here. And I still can't figure out what happened on the tag up at third. That was such a big play in the game. Mm-hmm. It was just you can't, when you get to that stage and you're essentially playing an 8 versus 9 NCAA tournament game, you can't have like little mistakes creep up. But, I didn't think Nebraska played poorly. I think it was an adjustment to playing in that park where, boy, if you're watching on TV, first of all, what is up with camera angles at any facility in Stillwater, whether it be Gallagher Iba or O'Brate Stadium? It is such an odd angle. And then I've been in that ballpark empty. I've never seen a game there. It is a palace, by the way, compared to old Allie P. Reynolds. Every ball that is hit sounds like it's been crushed. And that ballpark gives up a lot of runs. Look what Oklahoma State did in the nightcap last night against Niagara. So I think it was an adjustment for Nebraska early, and it didn't help that they fell behind. I like that they got their answer back, but then Florida got up 3-1. Yeah. So, now you're in your season's on the line mode, and I think you feel pretty good about today because you have McConaughey, but you got to score some runs. Yeah. Now, from here on out, it's all about runs.
Yeah, what I said with Brandon is that only putting up 2 runs in that ballpark should be a felony.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think, you know what? It's the first time they have seen really good pitching, consistent pitching, and parts of Nebraska's lineup got exposed yesterday.
Yeah. And by the way, you look at the season numbers right now for Nebraska. They are so reliant on Josh Caron to drive in runs. I mean, he's like double the RBI of everybody else. Whereas when you look at a Florida roster, it's like they have like 9 Josh Carons. Yeah.
I think they have
a bunch of those dudes.
You're absolutely right, Mark. And I think they rely, and this isn't anything new to baseball, they rely on getting the leadoff hitter on. Okay. I've said all year, they're kind of a front running team. When they play with the lead, boy, they look good. When they get a runner on to begin the inning, boy, then things can get in motion. It seems like when they fall behind or things don't go well early, they run to the quicksand. We usually try and avoid quicksand, which quicksand doesn't appear in like video games or movies anymore, which is really weird because when we were growing up, it was in video games and movies. So today is one of those days where, you wash it. You play Niagara. Niagara is a 4 seed for a reason. And so you have to bounce back. But, man, what a wild day in the tournament. Walk-offs, the number 2 seeds really struggled. The Big Ten went 2-1. And Nebraska had the toughest matchup of them all against, Florida, who they were a 3 because of the record. But if you kind of look inside of that record, that's a pretty good team. Not as good as the runner-up last year, but that's a pretty good team. But what a day of college baseball yesterday, and it's a bounce back day for Nebraska. And now they get into a marathon mode, but they got to score runs. You're right. Karen's got to drive in runs. They got to get leadoff runners on. They got to get them on, get them over, get them in, and they got to put up some big crooked numbers.
Okay, hear me out on this one. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. Elijah rightly pointed out. I'm like, where's Cole Evans been? And it's like, well, Gabe Swanson. Chris was like, Gabe Swanson, obviously he's hot. You can't take him out of the lineup. But I think you have to figure out a way to get Evans in, because what I was talking about with like RBI, and you being a baseball guy and like metrics for these kinds of things, whatever Cole Evans' clutch number would be, I think it would be pretty damn high. Look, 65 ribs for Karen this year. Second is Evans with 41. And then it's a drop-off. Everybody else is half or less than Karen. So you're talking about, out of a team that scored, however many runs, between Evans and Karen, it's not quite half, but it's like a third of your runs driven in were just those two guys.
Yep.
Right? So what would you do looking at Nebraska's lineup? One, do you agree that you got to find a way to get them in there? And then two, how would you do it?
Well, I think you'll see. I think you'll see a little bit of a change in the lineup. I think he's back in the lineup today. It's kind of what we saw at the Big Ten tournament. Remember the Ohio State game? And we kind of looked at the lineup and went, and then the lineup changed.
They scored 2 runs in that game.
Yeah,
right.
So I think it'll change today. I think the biggest thing today is they got to score runs. Also, Mason McConaughey has pitched really well, and if you go back to his time here in Omaha last week, the one thing that has really been established this year is Rob Childress's relationship with pitchers and pitchers that are reciprocal in the relationship. Like him and Sears have been on the same page all year. I'll tell you another guy. Rob Childress and Mason McConaughey have been in lockstep, it seems like, the entire year. If you go back to McConaughey's start here in the Big Ten tournament, look at his strikeouts. They were on a changeup. There aren't a lot of pitchers on their own to get a strikeout pitch are going to throw a changeup, but Childress is dialing it up, and he says we can get these guys on a changeup. So I think that's a little bit of today. But you got to move on. You can't really think much about yesterday. But back to your point, Mark, I think you'll see Cole Evans in the lineup, and rightfully so. And I think you'll see a spark on offense. But they got to get the leadoff guy on. They can't wait to get 2 outs. Because they're not a consistently good 2-out hitting team, so they need that guy on base. And it'd be nice to get a Silva on base, who when he gets on base, he's probably going to be standing at second base before long.
Isn't it weird that he hasn't been able to lock down leadoff? Right? Yeah,
they dropped him right at the beginning of May down to the bottom of the order.
Yeah,
and he hasn't come back up.
Yeah, he just hasn't been able to lock it down. It's very weird because his on base percentage is pretty good. His stolen base numbers are incredible, 31 for 34. He's exactly what you want, but yeah, it's just weird. It just feels like they're missing something offensively. I think another key, Gary, too, and I'm curious what you think here. Dylan Carey, out of Colorado as a freshman, he's got Major League Baseball lineage in his blood. Baseball through and through kind of a guy. Was able to crack the lineup as a true freshman and hold his own and did pretty well. He was flirting with the Mendoza line earlier in the year, brought his average back up. Do you think you think we're just looking at sophomore slump with Dylan, and that we could expect him to be a 300+ double-digit home run guy, next year?
I'm going to wait on that one. But, he's won for his last 17. He's in the lineup because of his defense right now. Yeah. Any guy that was struggling like that, they might give him a day off. But he's out there because of his glove. But I don't know, can you hide him in your lineup while he's going through it? And we may be overthinking this. They're down to they could be down to one more game, But you have to do everything possible to win, to survive, and get to the next day and – hope that everybody's intact pitching wise. That would be great if they could get a dandy out of McConaughey today, because you're not going to use him again in this series if you stay alive. So I think his pitch count will be pretty high today. But first pitch strikes are going to be important, because last night Oklahoma State, they were dealing in the zone in first pitch strikes, and Niagara had a hard time catching up to anything that was not a fastball.
Yeah, That's another thing. So some criticism of Childress and Van Horn too, just kind of that tree, has been over-reliance and high pitch counts on some of their top dogs. Like something you hear, right?
Yeah.
Right or wrong. I don't know if that is true. And you mentioned Sears maybe not having his best stuff 2 games in a row. He's gone deep into games for Nebraska this year. I don't know exactly how many 100-pitch games he's had, but I bet you it's a few. And he works quick. Are we seeing some of that right now? Are we seeing maybe a little wear on Sears, and maybe that's why?
Well, I think
that's why he's.
I think like a 90-pitch outing. Not all 90-pitch outings are created the same, and Sears doesn't have a lot of laboring on his arm. I just think this is the most innings he's thrown. He's thrown a lot of innings compared to the last couple of years. And
we forget that he wasn't much of a factor last year.
So rightfully, it's probably going to catch up to him. But that just shows you what a dog he is. I mean, he goes out there and battles, and he's still got enough stuff that is hit or miss stuff that he isn't going to have to turn into a nibbler. Yeah. He's a Big Ten pitcher for a reason. And I thought yesterday didn't have his best stuff, but a good sign of a good pitcher is when they don't have their best stuff, they hang in there. They don't give up 5-6 runs and put you in a deep hole, and they just keep battling and battling and battling. And that's what he did yesterday.
Gary, as we maybe put a bow here on baseball, I want to get your thoughts on, it's early to have this conversation, but assuming Nebraska can't make it out of the losers bracket, which is going to be a tough uphill battle to climb to do that back-to-back weeks, first in the Big Ten and then in a regional. Assuming Nebraska doesn't battle it out, however it ends, what is your synopsis of this season? Is making it to a regional and not getting out still a win for this Husker baseball team, given where they are in the Will Bowl era?
Successful.
Okay.
The whole goal this year was to make it back to the NCAA tournament, and they made it to the tournament. They were in the discussion to host to the middle of April, maybe even late April. Yeah, the midweek thing, they're going to have to figure out. But on the weekends where they had their money guys going, they were good. So I think this was a successful season because the whole goal was to get to the NCAA tournament. Now, it's a successful season that if you go 2 in the queue in Stillwater, you have to include that in the story. But I think in terms of turning around last year and at least putting your feet on the ground where next year you can look at your roster and what Nebraska's really active in the portal right now of interest. And whether it be from outside of Nebraska or, Creighton's got quite a few guys that are in the portal that have an interest in Nebraska. You put your feet on the ground this year. You got to the tournament. Now you look at an expanded Big Ten next year and where you've got to be, and then right back in that mix of let's get back to the NCAA tournament. And if we have one of those years, let's see if we can be a host. Because I will tell you, looking at that atmosphere, we all miss that. We've all been at the games at Haymarket Park, or some of us that got a front row seat at Buck Belzer in the final year. It's fantastic. It is fantastic when you're hosting a regional, and that's the ultimate goal for Nebraska. But I think this year was a success, no doubt.
Gary Sharp's with us, the Iron Horse weekend edition of Hail Varsity, Cornhead Lager, powering that. To football we go. We talked a little bit with Vogues about a couple of storylines this week. One was the Athlon article and the anonymity of coaches around the Big Ten. We are interested with some of the intrigue, and I don't think there's some intrigue with Nebraska, Sharpie, but the intrigue is what's that breakthrough going to be? Some anonymous coach said, look, they're going to break through. Nebraska will be good. Head coach, quarterback, defense. They're starting to look like dudes, like throwback Nebraska up front on the lines of scrimmage, specifically defense. That's the summary. Breakthrough is what, man? What do you believe is a number? We were talking to Barney about it this week, and he's like, look, 6 or 7, yeah, you get bowling, but 8 puts you on the fringe, that win total number. Mm-hmm. It's pretty interesting. And I look at Nebraska, and man, it's summertime, and the hype and the hope is going to just keep ramping up as we get closer and closer to August. So as you take a look at that article, What do you feel? What do you believe? Do you like what the coaches are saying?
I think, Nebraska can't be 5-7 forever.
No, I know.
And, at one point you go, F it. There are some good things that are happening. Everybody wants to put a number on it. And I want to put a number on it, but I want the Nebraska that's playing in West Lafayette at the end of September to play with the same success at the end of October, but look like they're getting better a month later.
Right.
Like not have where your season is on the brink, week number 2 against Colorado, but every week you get better and individuals get better. And also I think a sign of success is if they're going to put it out there, they want to be the best defense in the country, then they back it up. I think you're in for the long haul in 2024. We talk about baseball as a novel and don't overreact to one game in a 56-game season. It's a little bit different when you only have 12 games, but I think the whole body of work is important this year, that it looks good. We kind of joke when Mike Riley would say, well, I just want it to look like good football. That's kind of what we want it to look like, consistently week in and week out, good football, regardless of who they're playing. They play with the same tenacity and execution against Indiana that they play against USC a month later. That's what I want to see. And you know what? At the end of the day, then that can result in that 5 going to 6, going to 7, going to 8. But it's fascinating as we got through the month of May, and the magazines are going to start coming out. Usually the Kool-Aid flows from inside, and outside they get, they're like, no, I'm not going to get poisoned by it. And they go, I'm the non-Jim Jones. It's more outside of the borders that the Kool-Aid is turned on. And we're around here going, I gotta see it to believe it. But I like some of the things. It's kind of a reversal. I think it also shows you Nebraska has a coach that's got a plan that also is so highly respected, whether it be outside or inside the borders. And he is, and for a program that needs it, that hasn't been to a bowl game in 7 years, he's one of the best PR coaches that Nebraska Athletics has ever had.
The entire athletic department. Yeah, I think that's fair, Gary. I think that's completely fair. Is it? So what do you think it is that makes Matt Rule so respected? Like, what characteristics, considering, it was kind of ugly when he left Carolina, and we know about his performance in the past, but what, with Baylor and with Temple and turning those programs around and, producing winning teams in some tough places. Where do you think the respect comes from outside of that? Because he's not the only guy that has a resume like that. I think
he's an adult. He treats people the same way he wants to be treated. And I also think he's very transparent and he's honest. Like when he talks, you don't go, I don't know if he's just BSing with us. Like he talks and then he backs it up. Everybody can talk about, hey, I have this plan. This is what we'd like to do. He actually is starting to show it. Hey, we got a culture that's building. Man, if you guys can only see what's happening inside the program. Well, the only thing that we can see is that the fire alarm was not pulled and people didn't run away when the portal opened up. So we can go, okay, coach, I believe you. I mean, that's, we've been through a run here where coaches say stuff and then we want to believe them, but we can't believe them because there's no results. I think this is the turning point for Rule where we want to believe him, and now we're starting to see results. And I keep going back to this, guys, with the financial part, the way the game is changing off the field. 2024 is like that mover. Like they say, moving day is on Saturday at Augusta. Like 2024 is like moving day for Nebraska football. They've got a chance here to pop because there is no rhyme or reason that a 5-7 football team will basically have all but maybe 1 or 2 games are not on FS1 or BTN or behind a paywall. The Nebraska brand is really strong. And if they now can back it up with success on the field, man, 2024 is moving day and moving year for Nebraska football because then it gives you hope. Your quarterback isn't walking out the door after only 1 year because he was a portal guy. You like your young guys you have coming in, And you need to do some things financially that people go, I can see it. I'm on board. Here we go. But you have an opportunity in 2024. I know the schedule is the thing out there. You have to. Nebraska also has to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of them. And they have done such a good job as an athletic department over the last 5 to 10 years of getting in their own way. And it's not just football. And if they can get out of their own way this year in football and take advantage of some of the things that are going to be presented to them, then they can have a highly successful season. I'm still a little bit cautious because I look at a running back room that doesn't have a guy that ran for over 500 yards. I still got a freshman quarterback as dynamic as he can be. I mean, there's still all those little things. But 2024, I'm telling you, not just Nebraska, guys, and I know I'm rambling on here a little bit.
No, you're good.
You got a video game that's coming out here in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's going to open up a new audience to college football that they were introduced to college football because of a video game where they live in a part of the country that does not have college football, like the East Coast, but they know college football now because of a video game. We do the off season in college football crap-tastic. Okay, all the stuff off the field. But when it gets to on the field, we still do it great. Those Saturdays are still cool. And I think Nebraska's ascension, what could happen, and college football in this new day after our last dance last year, man, 2024 could just be a fabulous time for the game of college football. And Nebraska needs to find a place at the big boy chair and stop sitting in the kids' room that is off to the side.
Nebraska's got an opportunity not only to have a welcome back success moment, Gary, you're right on, in 2024, but then parlay it. How about some sustainability, right? Start stacking seasons where, all right, you've earned the ability to be talked about because you're winning some big games in primetime.
That's a great point, Schmidt. And I'll ask all three of you is, like there'll be a lot of comparisons to 2019 this year, whether right or wrong. But Colorado is week 2. And we talked ad nauseum about that staff. Scott puts, after the 18 season, they put so much into the Colorado game that was going to be the tipping point for the season because it was going to be we're back. That was going to be their back game. But mentally, that program was so fragile, they couldn't handle the good or the bad, whatever came out of that game. And you saw what happened in 2019. But you were like, man, if we can just win in 2019, we can survive for another year. Don't you guys feel that if the way they have gone about building this program in a short amount of time, when they get there, they're going to stay there? Do you guys feel the same way?
I do because of, let's be honest, like they're seeing high-level talent come to Lincoln. That's not new. You're seeing high-level talent stay in Lincoln, all right, through 2 years. And you're seeing guys get better. They're being developed. All three of those phases point to, again, sustainability, and it's not just a one-hit wonder. That is paramount for moving forward in this new world of college football. And I've seen it briefly.
And it just feels like they are legitimately committed to the two elements that I think we all know are the foundation of at least good football, right? And that is a good run game, a good defense, right? You can talk about special teams, passing. I'm just saying good. I'm not saying great, but there are very few great teams that don't have those things, right? Pretty much all great teams have those two things to start. And it feels like Nebraska is legitimately committed to those things. That Rule talked about running the ball, and they did, right? And Frost talked about it a lot, talked about being physical in the trenches, but didn't run an offense that was conducive to that. Talked about great defense, but hired Chinander, who never, probably wasn't quite qualified yet to have that big of a role, and, recruit accordingly. But Rule's a defensive guy. Tony White's a defensive innovator and doing really well. I think they're kind of built to the right stuff to sustain if they get there.
I don't have much to add to this conversation. The one thing that I look at,
you got to pee again, don't you?
A little bit. The one thing that I look at is I've now reset this 3 times, yesterday, today, and now again, is what does this team do whenever the eyes of college football, the national media, is on it? Because I think the television schedule as it sets up early in the season, national television games, primetime games,
fun.
It's conducive to, if Nebraska gets off to the start that we think they can have, that they'll have national media attention for the first time in damn near a decade. Like real media attention surrounding this team. I do wonder how this team responds, but as you kind of said, Gary, I think they have a guy in charge in Matt Rule that will have the right mindset through that in terms of a don't get too high, don't get too low, because sometimes you see teams go through that roller coaster whenever they get the eyes of college football, and then whenever everyone in the country knows the team, they ride that roller coaster of emotions. But Matt Rule doesn't seem to be the kind of guy that rides that. He seems to be a very much a keep it in the building kind of guy for a football team, but you never truly know until you get that opportunity, because it's been, as I said, probably 10 years since Nebraska's been nationally media relevant throughout a season. So I don't think you ever truly know until you get that, but they seem to have a guy that does not let the outside noise affect what's happening inside the program.
You can't crash and burn guys when you do have that spotlight, that stage.
Well, I think
look at Colorado week 4 and beyond as an example recently.
I think, Elijah, you made a great point, and I'm going to add a word to it. I think it's maturity. This is even though it's still kind of wild, Nebraska's roster is still really young, even though they return an abundance of starters. But they are a very mature team. And I'll give you an example. And Elijah, I love what you just said there. A guy that I know pretty well, because I got to know him and his family when they were in high school. He's going to be a starter for Nebraska this year. And I saw him 2 weeks ago, and he looks great. And I expect a big year out of him. And I won't reveal his identity because I'm going to say something that, if it comes to fruition, I'll bring this back up. But I said, how you feeling? I want to know how he was feeling because he's battled some injuries in his career. And he said, I feel great. He looks great. And I said, how do you guys feel as a program? And he goes, internally, we have something. He goes, we like what we're doing. We like each other. There's a bond, but there's also, we like where we're going, not just the culture, but the type of football that's being played. And I said, okay, I could vibe with that, but you guys don't really show it. And he said, because we don't need to. He goes, we'll have an opportunity. So I think the maturity part of the staff, you also have a very mature team, the leaders, and I think they're very even keel. That's one of the credits to Nebraska baseball this year is all the ups and downs and Husker Twitter firing, Will Bolton, Rob Childers 43 times, which could be odd with the paperwork. You have to be very even keel when you're in the spotlight. And so going back to what you said, Elijah, and I love what you just said, I think being even keel can help you through that. Deal with that while you're putting together the bottom line, which is we got to be better at the X's and O's stuff.
Got to be better at it.
You know what it is too? Yeah.
Have a plan, man.
Well, and you know what it is too? It's truly, and it sounds so simple, but I swear to God, it's the difference in any sport. It is just like the ability to play the next play, right?
Yeah.
Like hold it in isolation. Don't get emotional about it. Like that, as I'm sure you see it as an ump, Elijah and Chris, I'm sure you saw it with following your boy playing baseball for so long, but the kid that makes an error and then dumps, puts his head down and then screws up again, or the kid that strikes out and then goes and screws up in the field afterwards. It's just like
the baggage
plays over, right? Like you have to just play the next, because you never know if that's the play, right? And it feels like Rule has kind of instills that in that group, where it's just like each play is its own world, its own beast. And like if you attack that play and you do that play after play after play after play in a game, you got a shot.
Yeah.
Can I add one more as the umpire? I just want to say it's the kid that doesn't get a borderline pitch called his way and then turns around and walks the next 2 batters because he's hanging his head about that one pitch. Speaking from experience.
Yeah.
It's very much that roller coaster there of
Elijah's strike zone the size of the 402 area code.
no way. I'm calling a major league.
Angel Hernandez's strike zone for Will Clark after 4 beers the night before.
This is why Sears is so good. So yesterday he gives up that bomb. Next 2 pitches, outside the zone, balls not good. But then he shook it off, man, and he came right back. And just started challenging guys and throwing strikes again.
And it's difficult to do. It's the exception to the rule to be able to lock back in like that.
Yeah, hey,
right. Somebody with the worst mental makeup would have started to panic, right?
I don't know, but I have a little birdie has told me, I'll believe it when I see it, that Phil Steele may have Nebraska ranked. And, Phil Steele for the longest time, he's been pretty high on Nebraska. The Kool-Aid is flowing, and I think we're sifting through if we're a grape or a strawberry,
finding the flavor.
Person. Yeah, we're finding the flavor that we like. When do you think this slows down? Or does this just ramp up all the way to kickoff against UTEP? Because I'm going to tell you, after being out of the area this past week, people are talking Nebraska. And they're not talking, oh, man, it sucks that you guys haven't been to a bowl game in a long time. How about those 90s? I bet you're loving that BTN is showing the 94 Nebraska-Colorado game. People are talking about Nebraska of like, whoa, is this finally like turning the corner? Like, when does this slow down, or does this just ramp up? Because I got a feeling that Phil Steele will be very high on Nebraska. And when that happens, people will be like, man, it is like I am showing the O-face at the beach while I'm reading his magazine.
I think it slows down in season. It's going to be a downhill runaway train, dude. It's June, and you're going to get those magazine predictions. Nebraska will be trendy. Bruce Feldman's on with Hurd talking about Nebraska as a dark horse for Indy, and you just got to be back to the emotion and handling. You've just got to be able to handle it, right? Handle the hype. Go out and then do it on the field, because there's going to be 5 and 7 constant reminders from 10th and Vine by that staff. They know not to let their head get too big, the players, for not doing anything yet. But there's going to be a moment it'll go right into the season. And I think that validation point, just as you're right on about that tipping point for the Frost era in 2019 was a Colorado game. I don't think he's going to put a DEFCON 2 level on the Colorado game week 2, but I think, man, if you go out and do it under the lights and pound the national darling from a season ago, God, it could be really good if there was anybody still waiting to make reservations from this guy gets it and it's going to be okay for Nebraska football, is handling that Buffs game, and then what you do afterwards. You're not at the finish line, I think would be rules take. How do you go into these big games?
Wait, can I
go win a big game at night? Yes, Colorado. Go win a road game at night. Big game. I mean, I think it could really explode in an amazing setup. Ohio State, Nebraska. How do you look in that thing if both teams are undefeated?
Well, if Nebraska wins a game like Colorado, Schmitty, like I got a text last night following the Husker baseball game asking the question, why does Nebraska never win the big one? Why does Nebraska never win the game that gets hyped up across a lot of sports?
Sunday against Penn State.
That's not the big one, though. You get what I'm saying?
8 seed.
Is Nebraska wins a game like that and you think, oh, they're back, whether it be in basketball or in baseball or, I mean, it's been a couple years for volleyball. Like, there's always that moment where you say,
there's a next step game.
Man, they can really do it. That next step game, exactly. And Nebraska hasn't been able to get that done. It's when Nebraska does do that things really take off. Because I think there's going to be, following Big Ten Media Days, that natural contrarian reaction from some national talking heads, your Paul Feinbaums of the world. They're going to say, look at all this preseason hype for Nebraska. Why are we doing this? They haven't had a bowl season since, I don't know when. That natural reaction is going to come. And I think it's because there is that feeling out there of people in college football don't want Nebraska to be back. They don't want Nebraska to be what they were. No. I'm not talking your Kirk Herbstreits of the world. I am talking like the talking heads that maybe a little bit more locally among college football teams, like not necessarily the national people, but the people that are going to have to play Nebraska. I think there will be a reaction among some people that don't want Nebraska to be back because they like to pile on Nebraska. It's been fun for them to hop on Twitter and make fun of Will Compton or make fun of Husker fans. I do think that reaction is going to happen. It's going to be when Nebraska wins that big game, maybe not the Colorado game, but that next step game where I think the hype train really, really picks up.
Hey, can I be the guy that, you know,
don't get embarrassed.
We're riding the carriage, and I all of a sudden go, whoa! From here on out, I think that Matt Rule would be more anxious and excited to talk about UTEP than Colorado.
Very fair.
Because he doesn't need to talk about Colorado. But subtly, he has talked a little bit about UTEP and the fact that Nebraska football has not won their opener since 2019. Now, it's been quirky because it's been conference games. And then the quirkiness of last year playing 2 on the road. But that's a big deal that Nebraska football has not started 1-0 since 2019. If you're Nebraska, you don't have to talk about Colorado. Colorado sells itself. And you can not be the program that sucks up all the oxygen in that game because you have media, a fan base, and an opponent that will do just that. But you can't play Colorado if you don't beat UTEP. And I found it interesting. Rule in an interview the other day, and it might have been a recorded interview that was replayed, he talked a lot more about UTEP, and I thought that is the right way to go because you can't be 2-0 if you're not 1-0. And I think someone presented him with that stat that Nebraska football has not been 1-0 since 2019, and I think he probably fell out of his chair. Because if you hear that out loud, you do the same thing because we were all used to, Nebraska's at least 3-0 going into the Big 8, Big 12, Big 10. No, they're 0-1. 2020, 2021, 2022.
Think about the openers. Yeah, think about the openers. Like, it was shock and awe when BYU caught a Hail Mary in 15 because it had been 30 years since you lost an opener. Yeah, now you don't win an opener.
Man, first-year head coaches have trouble winning opening games here.
Okay, allow us to look past week 1 and
did I just burst the balloon there? I'm just trying to be Mr. Cautious guy. Now we can talk about Colorado.
Yep. The team can't look ahead, but we can. Colorado's offensive line is going to be 5 new starters, and this. I think this is super important, right? Super important because if we're talking about kind of finally taking advantage of a big stage, like this is going to be a huge stage, obviously. Night game, Dion, 5 new offensive line starters, but I don't know that they're going to be terrible on the offensive line because listen, they gave up 52 sacks of Shedeur last year. Best case scenario, Nebraska just lights up Shedeur all night. Right, and that will cause a hornet's nest, and that will create so much momentum and excitement for the team if they're able to, just harass him all night. But their left tackle, he will be a true freshman.
Pretty good.
So best case scenario, you line up Ty Robinson on him, who's 6 years older than him, and is 6 more years of weight training, and he'll just completely crush the kid. But he was the number 1 left tackle in the country. Yeah. Right? He was the top left tackle recruit. At left guard, you got a guy that is he wasn't eligible, but he's one of the Jackson State transfers. And so, he has some familiarity there. Your center is a Colorado kid that's kind of worked his way up. He didn't allow a quarterback hit last year at center. Right guard, you got a guy that started for UTEP he's a multi-year starter. And then at right tackle, you have a transfer from Indiana who started all 17 games and only gave up 1 sack. So I guess the question is, and Elijah, you played offensive line, and especially at this level, or not, you didn't play at this level, but you played offensive line. It seems like you have individual parts that can hold their own, right? They're pretty good, talented, experienced in most cases, and if not, supremely talented. How much do you really need that mesh? And should Nebraska, can they exploit the hell out of a group that has never taken a snap together at all?
I'll just say, as the former offensive lineman in the room, that cohesion matters more if you're a team that runs the football a lot. Pass protection is at times individual battles. It's like feudal Japan, where they set up and it's not armies battling together. It's a whole bunch of people battling as individuals.
Japan.
I don't know where I'm going here on a Saturday morning, but
no, it's a history reference.
Anyway, it's a lot of individual battles in pass protection, whereas run blocking, the play design there is a little bit more about cohesion. So it kind of depends on what kind of offense you're running. But that being said, the cohesion is still really important. But sometimes you can look past that in a passing offense where it's just, hey, pre-snap, get your matchup. We're sliding left. I know that this guy, if he comes, is my guy. It's a little bit different in pass protection with as much as Collar likes to throw the ball around the yard. I think they could get past it. That being said, some of these guys step up in UTEP, even a 5-star offensive tackle. There is a step up in competition that needs to happen. And I look at it in a road environment where you're trying to communicate pre-snap with guys that you don't know very well. That's where things can get a little more hairy, as opposed to they're going to blow it because they don't know the guy next to them in pass protection. It's two different conversations, and I hope I made sense there because I didn't phrase that as well as I could have, but you can get past it. There's other factors, though, like playing on the road at Nebraska in a night game that I look at and go, that gets a little bit hairy whenever you're playing next to guys that you never played against or played with in your life.
Mm-hmm. Nebraska's going to have scored 4 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Colorado probably will have the better quarterback. I think they will slightly have a better wide receiver room. I think Nebraska's wide receiver room is unknown outside of what we've seen, but Colorado will. We know that they will early in the year be able to pitch it and catch it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not going to be an issue. So they're going to try and turn the game into a track meet.
But you throw kind of what Elijah mentioned, and as I kind of talked it through, it seems like their weak link, at least on paper right now, their weak link, the thing that you want to throw the kid at, is left tackle. True freshman. Yes, he was the 5-star. Yes, he was an all-everything, number 1 tackle. But like you're saying, night game, the kid has never played in an environment like that in his life. You can't replicate that, right? The level of noise that he's going to be dealing with, and then don't you just overload him if you're Tony White, right? I mean, it's got to be the game plan going in.
But it's shotgun and it's a 4-yard hitch. I mean, you can try and overload them all you want. Their game plan's going to be quick game, I would think.
Yeah.
At some point. I mean, then you just got to tackle in space.
Yeah.
Easier.
They got some dudes in space. Travis Hunter.
I mean, their wide receiver group is legit, and it's not just Travis Hunter. I mean, I'm a big fan of Jimmy Horn Jr. Yep. And Wester isn't bad. That position is probably the position at Colorado where they are loaded the most. They could easily go 6 deep of guys that have also performed at the college level. I mean, I think you throw their wide receiver room. I think is one of the most talented in the country.
I think you throw Robinson, Uman Yellen, Linhart, a little bit of Butler, bring someone off the edge at that left tackle, just keep mixing it up and just overwhelm the kid with different look and different.
Just keep hitting Shador. How long does he want to stay back in the pocket?
Mark
getting hit every pass attempt.
We got to him 8 times last year.
Mark, spell Umamelin.
Ooh. We're on the spelling bee.
Yellen. I believe that is Umanieellen.
You added an extra I in there. It's Umanieleen. I think you had one extra I. Yeah.
Whatever.
Sharpie, what's the weekend look like as we say goodbye, brother? Are you swinging the clubs, or are you just hunkering down for some baseball?
I don't know, probably a little bit of everything. We got no NBA basketball to watch this weekend.
Yeah.
We do have some key Stanley Cup playoff games. But 1 o'clock, Niagara and Nebraska, like it should be.
Right, 1 o'clock in Stillwater. Sharpie, we'll run you down next time, brother. Always good to
Guys,
hang out.
You know what? 13 Saturdays from today.
You got the countdown.
Now we got kick times. We got networks. We got a video game coming. We got a big recruiting month.
We got to set something up for that NCAA college football. Are there plans for that?
July 19th actually is a holiday. I think President Biden said it yesterday while he's wearing the Chiefs helmet.
But do you all have for your respective radio shows? Do you have some sort of thing set up for that? You know what, like I don't know, tournament. Let's play each other. Let's sim the season.
I got to see if juniors
anything like that. Like,
I will.
Let's set something up.
Here's another thing. First of all, I would, as a college coach, I would, as a football program, invest in it, and I would have my quarterbacks play it. Think about it, because there's a lot of elements of the game. You can help yourself before you get to the start of camp. It's also going to come out right around media days. I mean, this is a marketing. They had the media play it. There's some glitches in it, like, a black guy can't be a white guy. Why is a white guy a black guy? That kind of stuff. They got to fix that thing. And there's some other things like Tommy Hill is wearing 10. Is it actually Butler or is it Hill? And why is Tommy Hill and Butler now fighting with each other? And why are they like trying to, fight over the number 10? So they're going to fix some of those things because it's clearly not done. But it's going to come out right around media days. So it's a great kickoff to college football. I'm telling you. If we can make it through all the other garbage that's going on around college athletics, and we can just make it to our Saturdays, we are going to love this season.
I will remain cautious here for just a moment after what happened to me in the spelling bee yesterday, but I will challenge any one of the Hail Varsity Radio guests or contributors. I think I could beat everybody in this new NCAA football game, and I will happily take on that challenge. Maybe we should Twitch stream it.
Okay, listen. Can we go old school? Can we go like vintage programs? Because dude, you don't want me in the triple option, bro.
Well, they have the triple option in this new game. Have you seen any of the release stuff?
Yeah,
they've revamped the triple option. Actually,
they have more RPO and stuff where the quarterback can get rid of it, and you can make a decision if the end is crashing. Oh, it looks like it's looks like it could be great.
Give me a day to adjust to the learning curve, and I think I can take on anyone.
No.
You just
this is what you do,
shot, dude.
This is what you do. Back in the day, Elijah, we would go to Best Buy when it was at 48th and 0. We would stand in line because they would shut Best Buy at 11:30. They would open at midnight, and more than likely, you were standing in line with Nebraska football players. And maybe you were lucky enough to get an invite to their pad, and you'd go there and you'd crash with the fellas, and you'd be playing until like 3, 4 in the morning. Or you might go until 6. And then if you had a life or not, you went to a job or class.
If you're a player, by the way, that's been working like crazy, you've improved, you made gains in the weight room, your nutrition's on point, you've climbed the depth chart to like 3 or 2, and then you see on the game that your overall is like 54 and your speed is like 60. Like, does that send you into a tailspin for the like
you're not happy?
How does that work? That's got to be just like, what?
Did you see the guy on Twitter yesterday that in the little gameplay trailer, he saw that his overall, he's a guard at Texas State, offensive guard, and he saw in the gameplay trailer he's a 55 overall, and he hopped on Twitter to complain.
Oh no,
Mark! You legitimately nailed that one. That's already happened.
Yeah, this thing is marketing itself. It's going to be fantastic for the sport. But again, if I was I would want my quarterbacks until we get going on August 1. I'd want my quarterbacks playing this game because the more you hear about it, there are a lot of realistic things from the eyes of a quarterback that are in this game. I mean, we hear NFL guys that have played Madden that are like, man, it actually really kind of helped me with reads and things like that before I got out on the field and saw it, first person.
Isn't it right? I think isn't it Max Fried for the Braves that does that too?
Yeah.
I don't know if I make that like he plays MLB The Show to like study the opponent batters.
Max Holloway from the UFC started using combinations in the UFC video game to add more combinations to his repertoire.
Oh my goodness.
He's talked about, I think he was on the Joe Rogan podcast. He talked about like he was like running out of ideas for creative combos, so he hopped on UFC and started playing around with things that would work, and he actually started adding stuff from the video game to his tool bag.
Yeah, July 19th. It'll be a holiday.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Let's do it.
Good place to end.
All right.
I think.
Good. Sharpie, be good. Elijah, appreciate you. Kraynak.
Thanks, boys. Will we be talking about Nebraska baseball playing next Saturday?
No.
Probably not.
Not a lot of optimism there. Okay, I thought I'd throw it out.
No, we won't.
I'd love to see them get another chance at Florida. Playing through the losers bracket with your pitching as you go up against an Oklahoma State lineup at home after what I saw yesterday does not bode well for Nebraska. I'd love to get another chance at Florida, but I don't like a matchup with the bottom of your pitching rotation against that Oklahoma State lineup.
Sharpie will holler next week. Appreciate you much, man.
Hey, thanks, guys.
There he is.
Thanks, Gary.
The Iron Horse. Like and subscribe. Hail Varsity YouTube and Hail Varsity Radio. Twitter at HVarsity Radio. We'll talk Monday at 4. Thanks for tuning in.